Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 435.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the CashFlow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other CashFlow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because, you know, for some people, fun is business, and business is fun, right? Many of you, you're out there, you're trying to build your cash flow, you're trying to make things happen, and you're just hoping that business is fun. And today's guest, well, our fun is his business, which is an interesting way to look at things, I think, for sure. But I think we're going to learn a lot of useful lessons because many of you, you're trying to figure out how to do this on the side. You're starting on the side and you're hoping, will this thing grow into something that is substantial? And we all have different definitions of substantial. And what's going to be fun today is that you're going to be able to talk to and hear from an individual who has done exactly that. Something that started out on the side, but came something real with employees, real as in has been able to receive millions of dollars because of using things like crowdfunding on platforms like Kickstarter. Think about that. What if your idea, your side thing was capable of that and you didn't know just how to grow it to that spot? Well, today we have a person who's managed to do that, and I'm excited for you to meet him. I'm excited also for you to hear some of the games that he makes because you guys know I like board games way more than probably I should, but that's not the point. The point is even our fun can be your business. And today we're talking to none other than Michael Mendes. He's the founder and CEO of Tasty Minstrel Games, short TMG. And you got to understand, they've won many awards for their game. So it's not like you just make a game and boom, he got lucky. He's done this more than once. And what I'm excited about is the fact that he's going to share his insights, his perspective on business with you and I today. Michael, you there?
Yeah. Hey, Jay. First thing I'd like to do is thank my mom for writing that intro. And then after that, just point out that millions in revenue does not equal millions to the bottom line.
Well, that's a whole, now we're going to really have some interesting conversation. I can see I'm like you already. So before we get there, though, what I would love to do is I want to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. Are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes, because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes, well, we have a lot of things in common. For example, occasionally an entrepreneur, we can believe that we are saving customers from themselves and various things, and maybe we even think we're flying around with capes and tights. However, just like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. If you think about Spider-Man, for example, he was a college student, then taking photos for the paper. One day gets bit by a spider, and now he has this newfound ability that he has to go out there and choose to use for good or evil. So, my question to you, Michael, is before the awards, before even the idea of making board games, before being able to go out there and have a company that does actually do millions of revenues, millions of dollars of revenue, what we want to know really is, who is Michael Mendes?
Well, I think it all starts back when I was about 4 or 5. It's my earliest memory of being super into games. I remember I was playing Candyland up in my room
yes,
by myself, because I probably exhausted all the people who were willing to play with me.
Right.
And playing it and, going about the game and thinking, I feel like this game would be better if there was a shortcut here, if the map was a little bit different. Imagining those things in my head and replaying it and be like, yeah, I enjoyed that more. So that's the earliest. And then when I was around 7, I started, or maybe a little earlier, I started playing chess with my dad. And that led to me being on the chess team. I was on the chess team from in first grade all the way through a senior in high school. When I was 13 in junior high school, a game called Magic the Gathering came out.
Yes!
Sorry. Of course, people know about that. I played that a lot. Semi-competitive. I mean, I played in several Pro Tours. Didn't do well enough to mean much, but I played in several. In around the year 2000, I discovered German design board games, things like Settlers of Catan, which led into things like Carcassonne, Puerto Rico. And I've loved games my whole life. This whole time I play video games, computer games. I'm 35 now, and I basically say that I've spent 3 decades spending every moment of my life either playing a game, thinking about a game, or being frustrated by the fact that I wasn't able to do either of those.
I totally understood. I did Magic myself, which is it's actually, I thought it was fun. It was awesome, and I likened it to chess as well. I liked it. Man, Magic was pretty good. I never went too far either. I did play in a couple of tournaments, but I was really good at frustrating people. That was like my fun thing, is how to frustrate you. I was that blue-white, if you think about the colors. I was the blue-white guy that my entire job was to make sure nobody won and you quit.
Pretty much.
It was awesome. Anyway, I digress. So what on earth... other than the fact that you love board games, because see, there's a lot of people who love games of various kinds, but I think it's a special person who then decides to take on the responsibility of entertaining others and providing board games for other people. That's a leap. Tell us how we get to that spot.
Sure. I was going to be graduating from college. I was married at the time. I still am, to the same wonderful lady. And Erin is her name. I was planning on publishing board games, but we both wanted to have children, and I was going to be graduating, so we, get a job and all that. We were successful in our attempts to bear children, and so I decided that I wouldn't take the risk of starting my own business when I had the option to go to work as a financial advisor, working with my father. It's something I knew that I would be good at, that I would enjoy. Of course, it wasn't games, but I knew those things. I'd work with my dad. I like my dad. I think he's a wonderful person. And my wife wanted to be able to stay at home, raise our kids. As long as she wanted to be able to do that, I wanted to be able to enable her to do that. So I went to work as a financial advisor, and as predicted, I did very well. I was good at it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't games, right? And so every couple of months, maybe every 4 months, but periodically I would come home. Maybe something got me a little bit down. I dealt with a lot of people who were a lot older than me, right? So often I would have situations where people that I really liked and had a good relationship with, clients, they would get dementia or pass away, or their spouse would. Right. Things like that would get me down. Working through 2008 and 2009, worked really hard to protect people's money from everything that was going on, was pretty successful at that. But interest rates became much lower. People had money coming due that was getting 5%, and then all of a sudden I'm saying, oh, well, no, we don't want to go risky on this. I know you were getting 5%, and that was awesome, and now we can get 2%, right? So these kind of conversations build up, and it's not games. So I come home, and I say, yeah, things are going great, and doing this, earning more money than any 24, 25, 26-year-old has any right to expect. And And my wife would just be like, at one point in time, my wife said, we're going to be together for a very long time. I expect until both of us passed away and beyond after that, because we believe that will be the case. And she said, I don't want to hear about how you should have been making games for all that time. So it's time to actually do it. Right. And so I said, okay.
Wow. Hold on. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. There's a lot of people right now who, first of all, are wondering if your wife has any sisters, because their spouses aren't the one pushing them towards what it is that they want to do. That's completely different. So you're saying the situation was it's something you wanted to do, but you weren't willing to go after it until she said, "Hey, go do it."
Yes. And she did that with the understanding I was going to be doing this spare time. I was not going to be risking the livelihood, the ability to eat, the ability to have shelter for me or her or our family. And we had the benefit of, so while I was earning quite a lot of money, we never really got all that fancy about, this is where we live or this is what we drive. And anytime we sort of stepped in, put our toes into that being fancy pool, we always were like, don't like this as much, really. So, the idea that I could put at risk $10, $20, $30,000 to try and do this, that was fine with her. The idea that later, once proving to be decently successful, I would go after this, and worst case scenario, I fail, I get a job, I earn less money. We were both okay with what that meant for us, so it made sense to do. Yes, she has a sister. Yes, she is married.
Oh man. Okay, we might have just lost a few listeners right there. But this is what I call that superhero moment. It's that moment where you realize you've got something special and you go out towards making that happen. What was that like for you the first time? Yeah, I mean, you identify as, a financial planner. You've got this job, you're doing it, you're doing life a certain way, but all of a sudden now you have permission to go and fly, so to speak, and find out if this thing that you have always wanted to do has any legs. What was that transition period like?
It started with me identifying the things that I had to give up. Right.
Whoa. Hold on. You're about to say something really good right there, because there's a lot of people who skip this part, and I want to make sure I have their attention. If they were walking the dog or doing dishes right now. Exactly.
Pay attention.
Exactly. So, go for it.
Before I could choose to go out and try to start my own business, I had to assess what was valuable to me. That started with my family and ended with my family. And so the things that came from that meant I was not going to sacrifice time with them, which meant I also could not sacrifice work ability, because I needed to provide. I wasn't going to be like, oh, hey, I'm doing this, so you need to go out and get a job. I was not going to allow that. So I had to identify certain things that were taking a lot of time, that were not going towards the ultimate end goal. And so there were certain games that I was very into, miniature games. For those who are familiar, those can be a large time sink. I gave up that. I gave up a lot of leisure gaming, leisure going out to movies with friends, or doing a lot of things like that. And just it became very much me, my wife, our couple of kids at the time. We have 4 now, and my job and my new job. And that was it. That was all I did.
In my new job. I like it.
And it continues to be all I do, except that my first job as a financial advisor, I don't do anymore. But it's still just me, my wife, our kids, and work. But work it was what I love, and I was suffocating by not doing it before. So the idea that I've worked for 3,000 days straight doesn't bother me at all.
Not that you're counting.
Well, someone brought it up the other day, and it was like 8 years worked out to be just short of 3,000. So they were complaining about working 10 days straight, and I was like, well.
Try this one on. You're like, oh, well, never mind. But let's talk about that.
Jay, if I may.
Yeah, by all means.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's one other thing that I think is also very important is today we are in an environment where the cost to entry on business in a lot of cases is very low. And so
low. I think it's virtually non-existent in some cases, but
sure,
yes, let's keep going.
Virtually non-existent, low, same thing. I was being generous for if someone had to actually make a product, right? But it's very low, potentially zero, right? Which means that anybody can do it. Which means that if you are going to be successful in any endeavor that is like creative or something that's easy for somebody to be super passionate about, games, being an author, being a musician, making films, like these sort of things that there's a large set of people that would love to do it. You have to be insane. You have to be literally insane like I am to like have a chance, because there are the other insane people who will work 3,000 days straight. You know, some days maybe that's only 2 hours or things are running in the back of your mind, but a lot of those days it's 12 hours and they will just work that time and they will love it and they won't realize they're working, right? So if you don't have that kind of passion for what you're doing, if it's creative or anything that somebody would really want to do, I'm not talking like accounting, engineering, things like that need to happen. So that's okay, right? You don't have to be super ultra passionate about that. But I think if you're not ultra passionate about something to the extent where it's like, no, you're crazy,
right?
Then you're bound to not be as successful as you might want to be.
Indeed. Now, I find this as an interesting topic because recently and often I'm working with clients in our coachings and whatnot, group and individual and otherwise. And occasionally, at least more recently, I've been hearing the following phrase. So I want you to put it in a completely different perspective because you're going to have a different perspective on this. Because I've actually heard individuals who are telling me, Mike, they're saying, Jay, I've been at this for 6 months straight, and it just hasn't happened yet. Maybe this isn't for me. I don't know that this thing works. But now, mind you, and we're talking about real estate and real estate related strategies,
sure.
Not something that's unproven, like coming up
sure.
with a board game out of nowhere,
sure.
Right? So yeah. I'm curious of how you feel about the thought process. What is it going to take for the entrepreneur to make it, and if they think 6 months is enough time? Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you though is, where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do, get some of your time back, is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/CashFlowDiary.
Oh, if I knew the answer to this, I could bottle it up. I have some ideas. Let me think about that a little bit. Again, it comes back to, is it something that you are doing, like in your leisure time? Are you doing this on a regular basis, such that doing it for 6 months and I'm not really receiving traction, that's not a problem? Or if the traction is so small, it's like in the case of real estate, I've managed to find 3 people that are letting me list their house, like on a retail side. Because people can get passionate about homes. My mom is that passionate, and I have a cousin who's that passionate about housing. I'm not. It's like, it's a roof. Thanks.
Right.
I think it really has, in a lot of cases, it has to be something that you are. If you can't get over the 6-month speed bump of it's not really happening, then maybe you're not looking into the right thing. On the other hand, maybe you could also be passionate, and it could just be that you're not good enough, which is another difficult thing. I think one strategy, especially if you're young, would be, if you really want to be in a specific industry, to find a way to be in that industry as close as possible to someone that you recognize as having done it and maybe can impart wisdom. So, for example, Daniel, who works with me, who's now the president of TMG while I'm the CEO, started with me 3 years ago. And like, I would be able to provide these shortcuts. Oh, this is important. This, it's important to get back to customers this quickly. It's important to consider these factors of the cost before we actually try to sell it, for example. But day to day, this is important. This is important. This is why. And he wasn't necessarily in the space to learn that particular item at the time that I said it. Mm-hmm. And in my relationship with him, there has been several times where he will come to me and he'll say something like, you said this thing 3 months ago, or you said this thing 18 months ago, or remember this idea? And I'm like, yeah, of course I remember that. Or, oh yeah, I forgot that, sort of thing. And he says, I get it now. Right. So being in the presence of the person who you can look up to and respect the way that they do business in the industry that you want to be in, if you are young enough. I'm talking, you could be up to 30. That might be the way to go, especially if you can live with a very low cash requirement. Like you're single, you are okay with living in a decent place with 5 roommates and eating ramen.
Got it. Okay, so what I'm hearing though, in various different forms, is this isn't going to happen overnight.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So when someone approaches, or someone looking to build business, regardless, I mean, you started out as a financial planner and then advisor, and then moving over, over time, there seemed to be a systematic plan that was being executed slowly to be able to evolve at something. So I'm curious though, one of the things that often gets in the way for people is, they say things to themselves, and we think, I would totally do my business idea if I could just come up with the money. And you're in the products-based business. There's often a financial investment up front, just, from my rudimentary understanding, there's a prototype, there's testing, these things that have to be done first. So let's pretend that an entrepreneur listening right now is thinking of something that has that in front of them. How do they deal with that, as that is currently perceived as an obstacle?
So I am of the opinion that a lot of quote unquote obstacles are put out there as a way to make it okay that you're not putting forth the effort. That might be overly like, I'm not going to let you get away with saying this to yourself. Might be a little bit mean to say, but that's how I feel. You can't, and I will follow that up with something you can do, if you have these obstacles, right, and you have a specific business, I assume you are going to eventually be looking to sell something to someone, right? And I have I have a handful of things which are free. First, MailChimp. Second, Facebook. Third, Twitter. Fourth, Instagram, right? Assuming you have the basic access to internet, you have a phone that, lets you do these things, and or a computer, which if you're listening to a podcast, you probably do.
Right.
So you can't sell something until you have someone to sell to, and you can't sell to someone until you have their attention, and you need to have that relationship before you want to sell it. Otherwise, the person you are trying to sell to will smell it, and they'll just be like, because you do it, people do it to you, and you go, oh, get away, you. Right? I had enough of that. So those are the things that I would say, and then I would follow up with saying something like, if you have a little bit of money and you're looking to get audience traction and you're having a hard time reaching people anyways, Facebook ads are really inexpensive to do. I mean, they're decently expensive, but you could be in a position where you spend $50 a week or $20 a week and be getting eyes on what you're doing, and you could at least find out. You could get some sort of inkling of if you are good enough, or get the feedback of people saying, no, you suck. If you're like, well, that's okay, I really want to do this, you can adjust and get better. But if you don't get that feedback, if you don't interact with people, it's not going to happen. And this is me, who is I am so afraid of talking to people. It sounds like, I'm having a good conversation with Jay here. I think I am. But, I am very, very, very afraid and anxious to just go up to people and talk to them.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you got to deal with it. You get over it by doing it and realizing, I didn't die from this person saying hello.
Right. Although it can feel like it occasionally.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Especially if there's like music that's at a certain level where you kind of can hear each other, but you have to shout, and people are in these circles of 5 or 6 people with their drinks, and you don't drink alcohol, so you're like, hey, I totally am drinking water. What are you drinking?
Totally. Yes, you and I have a lot to relate on right there. So now talk to us a little bit, because I know that part of your strategy for TMG has been using technology in various different forms, and through crowdfunding and sites like Kickstarter. Yep. What was that like? How did that even come to fruition? And most importantly, I mean, having such a successful campaign, I'm assuming there was a little bit of planning on the front end, or did that come out totally unexpected?
Sure. There's a couple of Watershed moments. The first one is super basic, so I'll go over it quickly. When I was deciding about those things to give up, I had a bunch of games, which I assume would appeal to my audience, that I recognized I hadn't played and I wasn't going to play. So I took those games. I decided I was going to give them away. I was going to pay for shipping. And I took a picture of me with all the games in the back, and I made a list, and I posted on Board Game Geek, which is the largest forum for the people who are my customers. And I said, and this was back in 2009, I said, hey, sign up for my email list. If you're on the email list, I will randomly select people at this date to get these games. I will ship them to you for free. It's free. It's free. I'm going to start a board game company. That's why I'm doing it. And I want to be able to talk to you. And I had 700 people sign up in like 2 days. So that was Watershed moment number 1. But Watershed moment number 2 was when we did our first Kickstarter, which was back in 2000. And I don't know. It was like 6 years ago. It was a long time now.
Yes, it feels like it.
So we grew into a lot of things. I was scared. I was scared so much of that first Kickstarter project, because this game that we did, Eminent Domain, was designed by my best friend, Seth Jaffe. And I thought, what if we put this up here and it fails?
Mm-hmm.
What does that say to me about everything that I've done thus far? Does that the marketplace telling me, no, you suck? Stop, just keep being a financial advisor, buy games that other people make, enjoy those. So I was worried about the implications of failing, such that I was super scared. We launched it. We knocked it out of the park. It was the highest funded game at that time. It stayed at that place for like 18 months. But this was $48,000, which is a drop in the bucket compared to what goes on today. So we had a lot of advantages of being able to grow into things, make errors, do experiments that people would be less likely to get away with today. So there was that advantage. That's how things kind of came along. Those were two major things for me when it comes to technology and whatnot.
Getting that marketplace validation is key, but let's not underscore. And I know from today's perspective, you're like, that was $48,000. But from the perspective of zero, where most people start, that had to be an exciting, like, I can't believe this is happening. This is awesome kind of moment.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing, and it still is amazing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's the part where you realize, okay, I do have this superpower. I do have something that the marketplace wants, not just in general, but specifically from me, and I have the ability to deliver it to them. So talk to us a bit about the process of going from that, realizing, hey, I've got a superpower, I'm going to use it for good, to maturing, or the phrase you seem to like to use is growing into it, into where you are today.
I think of it like moving a mountain. I guess it's a popular question at some of these tech firms. They want some open-ended answer that they think is going to give them insight into your psyche, to hire you or whatever. But if I was ever asked, how would you go about moving a mountain? It's very simple to me, one rock at a time, and you just keep going until it's done. And in my opinion, you don't know what you have to do until you're partially down the path.
Right.
and you don't even know that you're going to have to make a choice about something you're going to have to do until you're partially down the path. And then quite possibly you're going to make the wrong choice. And then when you do, you need to have that relationship with your audience so you can go to them and say, look, this is what happened. I made this choice. Now that I know the consequences of that, I would have made this choice. The reason I did this, the wrong choice in the first place was this. I'm sorry. You just own it. You move on, and you count. At some level, you have to count on that relationship that you build up and the quality of your products, and hope that it all brings you through, and just be thankful, grateful. It's like, thank you for buying our games. It allows me to do what I do. When I went to Japan for the first time, I saw at the most mundane of transactions true gratefulness. That's what I saw. That someone came into that bakery, they bought a loaf of bread, and the person who was running the cash register was communicating, thank you very much. I appreciate you buying this. If you didn't, I understand I potentially don't have a job, and I need a job. So thank you. Right? It's the kind of respect for a transaction that I rarely see in a lot of places. That is how I try to run everything I do.
That makes a lot of sense to me. So talk to us a little bit about the game making process, and more importantly, for those of us who have never made a game, like, how do you go from, waking up one morning, hey, what am I going to do, to, you know what, I'm going to make a game and it's going to be this. Like, what does that even look like?
So for us, we act more like Simon & Schuster does for books, except we do that for physical tabletop board games. So we will get game submissions from someone who has designed a game. And then we're basically looking for something we think is awesome, and then or could be awesome, and we will take that to the point where it's awesome. The game development, playing through it, verifying that it is other people like it, verifying that it's fun, verifying that if we released it at the price that we think the retail marketplace would be happy to buy it, that's financially viable for us. Once we make sure of all those things, we go about figuring out making the rules more accessible, making the user interface, the information design, graphic design good, getting artwork actually made, getting that all ready to print, getting it manufactured. We manufacture in China because we get great prices, but also because the manufacturer we use, I feel, makes the best physical games on the planet, and that nobody else is. I mean, there are other people who are close, and we have the relationship already with them. We get it ocean freight. We market it to people. We sell it to distributors. The distributors sell it to retailers. We have to coordinate with the warehouse that we outsource to. All that stuff. We do all of that, and it was built piece by piece by piece.
Wow.
Maybe that's a little bit more than you were looking for on that answer, but
no, that's exactly what it comes down to. Is I know I didn't know all that was involved inside of making a board game. I mean, I've never done it, but yeah,
a board game is actually surprisingly difficult to manufacture. The kind of games that we make, which are games for gamer nerds like myself. And yourself, apparently.
Go figure, right?
The kind of things that is fun to somebody who likes to mess around with the spreadsheet and bend it to their will. That's the kind of fun we make.
Totally understood. So what is that time frame, lead time, like to even find out how
Sure.
long is it going to take?
So from the time we are ready to push print, we're talking about 4 months. Because depending, it could actually be more, because if we have molded plastic pieces or anything like that, it could be more, depending on how things are structured. To get something ready to print, occasionally we get submissions that are like they're ready to go, they just need artwork, and sometimes that artwork gets turned around really quickly. But anywhere from an additional 2 months at the low end there to even 18 months. I mean, there's a game that we have conceived of, and we're looking to license some intellectual property from another company that we expect, if we can make it happen, we are not going to be ready to put that on Kickstarter for 12 to 18 months, maybe 18 months.
Wow.
So there's some serious lead time here, and with that, you have to make sure your pipeline is always fairly robust, and things are always coming in and going out, and people like the product. There's a lot of balls to keep in the air, but it's fun to juggle them.
Got it. Yeah, and that's actually what I was getting at, is how much time and effort goes into what ultimately could be games that don't even make it to see the light of day, but even those that do still take a long lead time to even make happen. Just
at this point in time, we have gates that we have to go through to make sure we don't waste a lot of effort on things we aren't going to make.
Right.
So we protect ourselves on that end.
Yeah. That would totally makes sense 100%. So for those that have listened this far and are just intrigued by the conversation, or maybe even want to check out a couple of the games that you guys have, what's going to be the best way for them to find out more of what you guys are up to, Michael?
Sure. You could go to the website, playtmg.com. Signing up for emails is one of the best ways to get information from us. If you're ever in a game store and you see a friendly-looking green dragon with the TMG in the logo, that's us. And if you were so inclined that you wanted to purchase something based on thinking that this was awesome, which I don't expect, by the way, and if you do, thank you. Martian Dice, as in little green men from Mars, and dice as in the things you roll, is a game that should be available on Amazon. It's a low price point. It's accessible. It's one of the best things that has like an availability for just about everybody.
Nice.
So yeah, those are the things.
Nice. I like it. I appreciate that. So as we wind down here, I've got a final question that I want to share that I believe is going to be I'm curious to hear your answer. So let's pretend for a moment that someone listening is considering becoming an entrepreneur. They're standing on what I would call the precipice, the edge of that decision. Maybe they're even standing in front of the superhero outfit store. They're ready to pick out their outfit and go out there and do this thing. However, you know, like I know, that in those moments of decision, there's often a voice that accompanies us, you know, and often that voice says things that are less than supportive. Things like, who are you? And you're going to make a game? Voice. Yeah, that, you're crazy. And for some people, they're actually related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend for a moment that the person listening is actually going to follow through on your advice. And not only that, they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
I would suggest that they need to embrace the fact that that voice is there. That voice comes from a place of love in most cases. They want you to be successful. And this is so off the wall that they don't see how it could be, right? So embrace the fact that that voice comes from love. Disrespect that voice at the same time and go out and do. But don't go out and do such that you're creating trouble. Don't dig yourself a hole to jump into and hope something's down there, right? So don't leave your job. Don't spend a bunch of money. Just start with trying to build an audience, trying to communicate with them on a regular basis, and figuring out, is this something I would actually want to do in a way that doesn't require you to jump and for a net to appear? Because if you jump and you're expecting a net to appear, in my opinion, in a lot of cases, it won't. And you go splat. And then that voice was right. And then the next time you want to jump, hoping that a net will appear, you will potentially listen to that voice so much that you just won't even bother. You just won't even do it, right? Yeah. So know that the voice comes from a place of love. Disrespect it in the case that you're actually going to go out and try, but don't risk your ability to live your life the way you want. Carve out the time that makes sense. The 2 hours you spend watching House of Cards, the the things like that. The 3 hours you spend every week at your friend's house for the role-playing game sessions. If that's what you have to give up, give that up. Test it out.
Got it. Totally understood. There is a sacrifice required anytime we're bringing something new into the world. And I definitely appreciate you taking the time to break that down, and most importantly, be the example that many can choose to follow, and sharing your knowledge, insight, as well as your wisdom here with us today at the CashFlow Diary.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I loved it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean today? That means actually go back over the notes that you've just taken. If you didn't take notes, listen again. Grab those nuggets, and hey, if you happen to be in a game store, look for the little friendly green dragon and pick up a game. You never know. You might learn something new, have some more fun, start a new relationship, all over a board game, because that happens a lot of times. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.